Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Trinity. My name is Garrett Hershey. I'm the pastoral intern here. And so I want to warmly welcome you all to our fifth and final community conversation on immigration. Now, if any of you are ever looking for a church home, I would like to just put forward that Trinity would love to have you. But with that out of the way, I will now invite Mark up to introduce our speakers today.
Thank you, Garrett. And I'll extend my good afternoon and welcome too. We're glad that you're here. This is the fifth in a series of Welcoming the Stranger programs that we put on. We found it ironic when we started to talk about this last summer, we imagined that immigration was an old issue and no one would care. Never did we expect the turn of events that we've seen over the last 2-3 months and all the dynamics it's brought to our community. Our speakers have helped us to realize that. So our speakers have taken us from understanding some of the legal situations immigrants face and how we can support them, and then moving to the stories of immigrants and the fact that it's not an issue, it's a collection of stories of individuals who are facing many of the same things that whether we personally did or people in our family have faced to be able to come and be successful in this country. We're delighted today to have two more speakers. This is the final part, and this is the part where we try to bring it together and talk about how do we go do something about this versus just being concerned citizens. So Martha Nami and Julie Stark are here to be able to share their program. They've got some resources to be able to share with us as well that we'll look forward to sharing with you as we finish. Now, one quick observation. This is a beautiful sanctuary, and hopefully you enjoyed the organ, but one of the huge disadvantages is the lighting situation we have. And you can see that despite our best efforts, and I think we're on our third projector, it's still relatively dull. So we're going to turn down the lights a little bit, because that's going to help the resolution on the screen. Great. Julie, Martha?
Hello, hello. Can you all hear me?
Testing.
Yeah? Good afternoon. How's everyone today? Yes? So my name is Julie Stark, and this is Martha. And we are colleagues, friends, and both in service in our unique ways to the immigrant and migrant population here in Chicago. And today we thought it might be interesting as the final in the series to just have a conversation. So what we're going to be doing today is I'm going to kind of act as a moderator with Martha, who has a very unique story, and I'll just say, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself, but what I most love about your story is that you are, at the large level, a resource in the community, and you're going to talk about what you do. But at a personal level, you have taken on in your building an extraordinary effort to serve the community that's there. And so in that way, Martha, and what she does is a unique case study in how do you become a resource, or how do you begin to work as a resource with the community resource that you are and already have at your disposal. And I encourage us today, as we have this conversation, Martha and I, to be thinking about your own sphere of influence. Where are you? Where do you work? Where do you serve? Where do you pray? Where do you go to be part of community? And within that, what is your role there? What are the levers that you push when you're there? And as we're talking about the different resources here in Chicago, maybe be thinking, well, what can I do? What are some levers that I actually have in the everyday way that I live? So that's the hope of what we're going to do today. So I'm going to start. This is our agenda, as you can see. I don't know if you can see on this thing, but we're going to just spend a few minutes to talk about what do we mean, certainly through Martha's story, what do we mean by immigrant, migrant? Who are we talking about here in terms of our unique stories? And then also we're going to talk about what are the resources that we know of, that we've seen, especially in the Uptown neighborhood where Martha works, what is actually there and what do they do. And then at the end, hopefully we're going to have a chance to speak together as a community and say, here at Trinity Church and wherever you come from, what can we do? What would we do? What would we plug into if we could and if we would? So that's kind of what we're going to do today. Let me see if I got this right. Yeah. So come on over here, Martha. We'll kind of talk together. We'll move around. So first, I'd just like to start and just ask you to introduce yourself. And you were the one that reminded me of this quote when we were thinking about sharing together. It's something that's near and dear to your heart, and just maybe give us a few minutes about who you are, where you came from, where you're working now, and why this quote.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Martha Lame.
Yeah, you have to,
Hello? Can you hear me now? Yeah?
yeah,
Better?
speak up,
Okay.
loud and proud.
I'm originally from Colombia, South America. I am an immigrant, and I'm a very proud American by choice. This quote is very dear to my heart because this is, we were all concerned and worried, after the last election, and we were at a leadership conference, and I don't want, this is the substance of who we are. We are a group of thoughtful, committed citizens, and this is what America is all about. We are the power of America. And yes, it says, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Margaret Mead. Yes. So that's who we are. And I have an opportunity. I've been at a 310-unit building in Uptown, where I've had the opportunity to serve for the last 26 years. And it's been a wonderful experiment in humanity and in building bridges and in finding resources and in to really connecting, with people. And when we're willing to do that, there are so many resources. I mostly house children from Ethiopia, Vietnam, and we began as a story of a 4-hour after-school program, and it developed into a full-time 40-hour after-school program, where now the children have piano classes, karate classes. We bought sewing machines. We have sewing classes. We have yoga. We have in the summer the children come to a summer program, and we have the Chicago Food Depository come and bring them meals.
She's giving you the whole ball of wax before we're even
before
my next question.
Okay.
But I want to just focus your attention here on when Martha came to with that quote. We started talking, and what you see here is kind of, there's a committed set of citizens, and with an intention to build bridges using the structures that we have, the structures that are around us. And what we want to talk about today is what are those structures? And maybe we'll together, we've got a little handout here for you, so let's just hand these out. There's a couple. And I want to focus your attention. You want to go on that side here. Just pass those down. You'll see. Go ahead. Okay, you go with it. Here you go. You want to take the rest? Okay. All right, you got this person. Everybody have one? Okay, so.
I got ahead of myself.
That's
here.
okay. I love it. I'm going to come looping right back with you. So basically, we were kind of noodling, and those of you that were with Denny Roberts and maybe other people here down at the International Leadership Association, we did a little session down there as well. And we kind of tweaked this to talk a little bit about what are the resources. So if you take a look at that little circle, this is not like a formal thing from a model. This is just out of Julie and Martha's heads, basically. But as you can see, it's kind of like, and maybe all of you who are committed, concerned citizens have plugged into some of this. So on the one hand, in the green, you see the legal system. This is all of the Department of Justice at the federal level, but all the way down to how do you help people get their Social Security card, their driver's license, their SNAP cards, their nutrition support. These are all the legal and federal systems. Their asylum applications, their any sort of immigration paperwork. So that's kind of one level that we see resources existing in the community. At the bottom of this circle is these are all critical things. What do I need when I'm a new arrival in this country or in any country? Housing and employment, and there you see it kind of broken up into these transitions. As you know, here in Chicago alone, we received 35,000 new migrants in August of 2022, and there were 27 shelters, maybe more, 27 to 30 shelters all around the city of Chicago. Those were temporary housing. Then many people move into kind of transitional housing, where it's not where they're going to end up, but it's not the shelters. So there's a whole resource set up for that. Then there's actual housing, apartment buildings, if they can find them, to have just a regular rental situation like you or I would be using. Then employment, same thing. We start with just gig work. Where can you just get some gig work, moving on into more, like W-2, like a regular employment situation. Now, as I'm saying all of this, you may be thinking, do I know people that have employment? Do I know people who own buildings? Do I know people who have rooms for rent? I want us to be thinking about, and we're going to tell you stories about people who actually did and do this work in this way. And then on that other side of the circle is what many of us, including myself and you, Martha, is all the acculturation. How do you learn about what it means to live in this community, live in the United States? What about the schools? What about education? How does it work to work in all of these different systems that just means to be part of the culture? So you probably can look at some of those, the tutoring, the ESL, all of that. Like, where do I plug in? Or where have I plugged in? So using this as our guide, Martha and I were kind of looking at, well, what is the story of facilitation, navigation, and education, mobilization, all of this kind of thing that exists right there in her building, because it's like a case study, an interesting microcosm. And as we're going to talk about right now, Martha, is we're going to start with housing, because that's the anchor of what Martha does in her building. And so the first question that I'd like to ask you is, what is the housing that you do? How do you provide it for the people who are there, particularly the immigrants? And by way of, tell us a little bit about, when we talk about immigrants in your building, what do we actually mean?
So the building that I manage particularly is 310 units. And the immigrants that I have are green card holders. So people that would have a temporary permit do not qualify to live in subsidized housing. It's subsidized Section 8 housing. So that's basically who I serve.
And your building is Section 8?
It's 100% Section 8, correct, yes.
Okay. So just give us a sense of the process, how it works. So if somebody who has a green card, or just, you don't even know if they have a green card. They just come to you and they say, I want to be in this community, I want to live here. How do they?
They have to sign up they sign up into a waiting list. They fill out an application. You have to have a Social Security and a green card. Those are, basically the requirements. With the latest wave of mostly Venezuelan and South American immigrants, they had something called the TPS, and I went ahead and took it all. But before we are allowed to give someone housing, we have to check with the Homeland Security computers. And if they're not in there, then they do not qualify.
So that's interesting. So just as a distinction, is it fair to say that many of the immigrants that are living in your building came as refugees?
Correct.
And just so that we're all clear, the refugee status is an I-94 visa, which means that they're usually coming in through a partnering organization like Catholic Charities, and then some of our congregations, like the one in Wilmette or our synagogue in Glencoe, become partners with Refugee One, you may have heard, or HIAS. And we partner with Catholic Charities and Refugee One and congregations like our own, or just individuals. A family can take on a family. And so these folks are under that status. But let's distinguish that, and I think you just said that if a migrant comes to you and says, I'd like to live in your building, they can't because the TPS is not valid to get into the building. Is that
Correct, yes.
So that means all the Section 8 housing that's available for immigrants and other people in the community are not available to the migrant community because they come in on a 589, which is a different status. It's asylum. So what that means is that they have to apply for temporary protective status. And I'm just kind of reviewing, most of you who are here probably know all of this. But what's interesting is that even maybe tell the story of a mutual friend that we have, Kaida, who is a migrant, who has a temporary protective status and a work permit. So she's gotten that far in the process as an asylum seeker. But just tell briefly the story of when she came to you with her husband and 3 children.
Yes, so she came with her husband and 3 children. They had actually left Venezuela years ago, and they made a pit stop in Peru for a couple of years, and then came through Mexico and came up. The Institute of Cultural Affairs opened up one of its floors to house basically 20 families, and they all have common areas of kitchen, bathrooms, and they each have like a room per family. And they're very grateful, and they work very hard. She's an amazing entrepreneur, and they do have, they waited for their appointment. They made the appointment, and they have a temporary, permit. But, unfortunately, right now, I cannot do anything, even though their time has come up on the waiting list, and they are ready to be housed, but I
in the
cannot
beautiful
house them.
apartments that you have, and I've
Yes,
been in this building. It's literally right across the street. And to your point about the International Cultural, what's it called? The
Institute of Cultural Affairs.
Yeah, the
yes.
Institute for Cultural Affairs. So that's a perfect segue into, well, if they can't go into buildings, housing-wise, which is, as we know, one of the most critical and foundational needs is to have shelter. And so what happens? Where do they look? Where do they go? So there are several ways. There are resources in the city, and you'll see them in the links on the back page of that we gave you some examples. And Martha will talk a little bit about, there are commissions, the city of Chicago provides resources that can help them find some housing, but it's very difficult. And you can imagine with 35,000 people, it was very difficult to attend to all of that. So that's a very substantive and good way that the city has tried to provide. In the middle there is a public building. And we put this in here because it's just so interesting that the Institute of Cultural Affairs is a public building with offices and offices running out of that. And a very visionary minister herself and her husband, who are a minister, her name is Louisette, and her husband is Pastor Ed. They are Curaçaoan missionaries who happen to be living in Chicago. And they went to the Institute of Cultural Affairs and said, if we could raise the money, would you allow us to take some floors, empty floors of your building? And we all know that in the city of Chicago, there are hundreds of those buildings that are empty post-COVID. And we could repurpose them and make them into transitional housing for these migrants because they can't go to them. So she convinced them, and through this community in Wilmette, an organization called, that popped up, if many of you know Jessica Siegel, she and a bunch of other concerned, committed citizens here in Wilmette created the, what was it called? The North Shore Neighbors Say Bienvenidos. I think that was is the name of the organization. And they raised up to $35,000 to make this happen. And that building got repurposed, and there are 15 units on one floor and 7 units on another floor where people who left the shelters are living directly across the street from Martha's building. So that's just an imagination of what a community, what's possible in a community that just decides through the eyes of one missionary woman who said, okay, I'm going to make the ask. But it required the building to say yes. And then it required that this community to say, we'll help you do it. So that's the middle column. And then there's just individual buildings. We work with immigrants and migrants who just want to get into they're ready, their kids are in school, and they want to be in an apartment. So this happens to be a picture of an actual building in Rogers Park, owned by a family who they themselves were immigrants and who just decided to take a chance and say, I'm going to rent with a subsidized rent if we can get a guarantee that some organizations, synagogues, mosques, churches will be willing to do it for other community. We will rent to these folks who are in transitional work situations. So I happen to know a guy that is this person. I myself have put 2 families into that building. So again, I encourage you to be thinking about what's possible with your resources or the places that you know. So Marta, let's talk a little bit about other things. That's housing. Tell us a little bit about the way that you support, particularly your immigrant population. Tell us what percentage of your building is immigrant population?
Probably 90%.
90%. Okay, so I know that many of them are probably on the nutritional supplement program in the city. Is that true?
Right. So we have many. The first thing is, one of the first things is language, and one of the first, the children were a main concern. I have about probably 100 children in the programs that I have, and we have about 300 children in the building. And some of them, when they came, all they could say was food. And that was 20 years ago. And we've served them and they've been in our program. And some of those children grew up to be recipients of scholarships, and they're now in college. So
tell us about your partnership with, say, for example, the Chicago Food Depository.
So the Chicago Food Depository brings us meals, 2 meals a day. And in the summer especially, they get 1 meal in the morning and 1 meal in the afternoon. And we also, the building itself has a very committed owner. And he is very concerned about the children. And so instead of putting that money back in his pocket, he puts it into the program. And that's been the success of the program. So yes, we do have a relationship with the Chicago Food Depository, and they bring the children, 2 meals a day.
How did that happen? How did you get that partnership going?
How did I get that partnership? So actually, it was through faith-based. We have the Uptown Baptist Church, and it's all about networking. It's all about talking to each other. It's all about who do you know, and my goodness, and can you do this? And so yes, I met the pastor of the Uptown Baptist Church. And he said, hey, how about if I bring, turkeys and a Christmas basket to your seniors? And they showed up with 20 boxes. And then I said, well, great. And who do you have? And eventually, that came, the Chicago Food Depository contact came. And now we have a truck that stops in with, groceries once a week. And serves that. And we have that truck stop at many churches and many other locations through Chicago. And they do serve, the children. And that's a commitment of theirs.
So it just really took you to say, okay, you're in the church, and you know this, and you know that, and okay, the Chicago Food Depository can come. Yes. And they literally come. And that has nothing to do with the kids getting the hot lunch at school. This is what this building in one little corner of the world in Uptown is doing, to just support this community. Let's tell us about the public safety, because safety is another issue that I know that has been on your mind, and you have this wonderful partnership with public safety. So tell us about that.
Yes. So one of the things that when I started at the building, there was the element of crime and the children being safe. So we partnered with the Chicago Police Department and CAPS, and the Chicago Police Department began to come to do lectures with the children and to just demystify the uniform. so the children can have the idea of the policeman is a nice person, not a bad person. So that's been very successful. And the police, they've brought programs to us like Young Explorers, which the children can participate in different activities. The police come, and they come sometimes with, they have a surplus of toys, because the community will donate toys to them, and they'll come and bring toys, and it means everything when the children see the policemen come, or policemen or women, come with toys and give them the toys. So it's been a very meaningful partnership, and also education. They come and they talk about gangs, and they talk about recruitment and what you need to be careful with, and things like that. So it's been a wonderful partnership. And the police department of Chicago has particular youth officers that are dedicated to this. So we're very blessed to have a city that really cares in that way.
Yeah. And, it kind of begs the question, what about those migrants who are back in that building here in Uptown? And there are many of them all over, from the south side to the north side. I think there are still, now they've closed down the shelters, as you may know. They've created a unified housing needs initiative through the mayor's office. And so now the unhoused population and the migrant population are all getting expanded services through one unified way. So that's better for them, so that they can all benefit from the Chicago thing. But back to what do the migrant community? Well, this is just another little story. How do they deal with food and needs and clothing? Well, many of you. Well, let's have a show of hands. How many people in this room have contributed or been a part of or ever served clothing, taken clothing or food, or seen any of that since the migrant situation started? Yeah, look around. So you've all been part of that. You've all donated or actually been in your cars going to particular places. Well, in this, right across the street from Martha, this very young woman, Kaida, that we both know, and Louisette, they realized that it's very difficult for folks who are in shelter or in temporary housing to access. They have no car. They don't know the public system yet. They don't have cards to get on the Metro or on the L. So they started their own free store in the building, in that very building. And we, the communities around them, helped them to set it up so that and now for years, not years, maybe a couple years, it was almost every day. Now it's every Friday. It's still in works. It is completely managed and run by the migrants themselves who live in the building. It started out being run by lots of volunteers. Now they're running it. They live in the building, they run it, they organize it, and they deliver books, clothing, boots, winter jackets, some strollers, just anything that you could need. So you can be thinking about, there's a destination for your things, and now they're running it for themselves. So there's a certain level of agency that happens in these resources that start to grow. So that's nutrition, housing, and the immediate needs. Let's talk a little bit about kind of the acculturation and that kind of thing. What kind, or actually legal, let's do, are there any legal supports that you all provide through your building?
No.
How about in the community?
Yes, in the community there's agencies. There's agencies that provide that legal support. I'm not really familiar with some of those. However, we do have wonderful materials that the City of Chicago Commission for Human Relations has provided us, and we have these handouts. Mm-hmm. And in the last pages, they have a lot of resources, legal resources.
Exactly. So Martha, in her amazing networking ability, has a connection with a gentleman who runs the Housing Commission or the Human Relations Commission She has a relationship with the alderman. What is the district that you're in?
46.
46.
46 ward.
So every ward, every community has their alderman and the ward. And if you were to go onto, and we gave you the link for it, just out of curiosity, to look at what, is it Angela Gray? I think.
Correct.
Yeah,
Clay.
Clay. Angela Clay is in Martha's district. You can scroll down and see they know who's in their community. And they are talking to them and for them. And if they are too afraid to come to her themselves, she's setting up things for them to do. And that's another opportunity for us to plug in by looking at what the aldermen are doing and the alderwomen are doing across the city, wherever we live, and be able to say, I can be part of that. I can help you to do what you're doing, and there's lots of community things. I think there was something just last week, wasn't there, that was going on? What was that? On March
Yeah, there
4th
was
or
like
5th?
a community conversation, through
Exactly.
the city colleges, and that's another resource, is city colleges.
Exactly. So this is just one example of all the systems that are in place. If you're a lawyer, if you're a numbers person, if you're somebody that just, you're retired and you have extra time, you can be helpful with these offices that are already doing it. And we gave you the links on the back page of the handout. You'll see, and we're going to put this up. I think Denny told us that they're going to put it on the Trinity Church site that has hot links on it. So this handout will have hot links where you can go and see in every single one of the things that we're mentioning here, it says volunteers needed. So think about your skill set. And now let's talk about what it's, I think, most extraordinary about what you do, which is all the acculturation. Like, you are an intact resource for all the things that you do. So tell us a little bit about specifically some of the things that you provide in your building, and then that'll help us expand to what we see in the community.
Yes, our first concern is the children, again. And some of them come and they don't have, much language. And, we have, programs. The first thing is relationship, I think, is so important. They are greeted by a very warm, wonderful person that says, hi, honey, how was your day at school? And they get a hug and they get a snack. And then she sits down and does homework with them. And that made so much difference. The difference of show me and the one-on-one, and I think
Who is this that's doing that?
her name is Carol Dunbar. She is a social programmer, at the building. And then we reached out to the local high schools and said, how would you like to provide us some students that can maybe do homework help, and you can give them credit for it? And they said, great. So they send us some of their high school, students, and they sit and do homework with the kids. And that's been very successful, and they get the credit for it. So that's one way.
Tell us about some of the events that you have.
Some of the events. So we have classes. We have a lot of classes that are, I think as an immigrant, this is the land of opportunity. And I want so much, and I wanted to give the children an opportunity. So since the owner of the building is so committed, I said, okay, how about piano classes, which is something that the children, may not really, get. So the children get 15 minutes. We have a teacher that comes, and it's a paid teacher, 2 hours a week, and the children come in 15-minute increments. And then if they're interested, we have a piano downstairs that they can practice on. Then we have karate. We have we have dance, we have manners. Some of the children come from cultures where, per se, for example, in Ethiopia or in some of the Arab countries, they have, it's a community meal, and they all just share. So some of them don't know that you need to, use certain utensils. We teach them that. We go to that degree. We've also
And
had,
I just want to remind ourselves, as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself, this is a housing building. This is an apartment building.
Yeah.
Think about the many apartment buildings that we've lived in over the years, where you just walk in and you go to your room. You go to your house. There's no community in an apartment building what they've created here is intentional to bring a community that needs them into the home, basically. So I just want to be reminded of that as I'm listening to you talk. It's truly extraordinary. And tell us about Carol. Carol is an employee
Yes.
of the building.
Yes.
And she's a social worker, and she was hired specifically to do this program.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, she's amazing. And there's, we reach out for whoever we can reach out in the community. And we build bonds with them, whether it's the police department or the church or, anybody really that wants, to work with us, different agencies. And yeah, we work with them, and it's very successful.
I think you have an art teacher? Do you have that?
We have art. Yes, we have art every Fridays. We have 2 hours of art every week. Yeah, we also bought 12 sewing machines, and we have a sewing teacher. And so a lot of our youngest is 8 years old, and our oldest is 78 years old, learning to sew. When it was the pandemic, nobody had masks. Well, we made masks, for everyone in the building and in the community. So
cool.
those are the kind of things that we do. Yeah, in the police department, they have artists. So come and teach the kids, to do art. And they would bring, canvas and art supplies, and we're going to make this picture and do that. So it's just activities of reaching out to each person and saying, okay, what can you do, and can you share, and do you want to share? Come with me, and let's do something for these kids.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And I think even in this area, I've heard that there's interfaith knitters. Maybe, did somebody even here in this congregation tell me about that? I don't know. People who just come together to knit, but as I'm listening to you talking about the masks, there's just an opportunity, and really all that we lack in terms of being actionable on our commitment is really imagination. Just as I'm listening to you, I'm thinking it's really your imagination. You were like, oh, wouldn't that be nice to have 12 sewing machines so that they could sew?
If I may, I'd like to share. On Veterans Day, I think it was when was Veterans Day?
November
Anyway,
11th?
Yes. So we had. I thought it was so important after the election to tell the children who the veterans were. So we got them all together, and we told them about, we are in a place where we were able to have a voice and elect someone for the government, and some places in the world don't have that. And there are these special people that protect that right, and they're called veterans, and we want to make letters for them. So this was for Veterans Day. The kids, they each did a letter for them, and we sent a nice little booklet to wherever it was, the Veterans
I hadn't heard
Association.
that story. That's good.
Yes. And the kids went on their school break over Christmas, and in January, each of them came to me with like 10 letters each. I have about 300 letters.
They came back to you.
Came back. They said, we kept on writing to the veterans because we think it was so important. And they talked to the parents, and they talked to them about what brought them to this country. It was, they were refugees, so there was a fight between the borders, and it builds that dialogue, and that was so important. So now, it's a wonderful opportunity now to have these little kids have a pride. They were born in this country, and now they have American pride. It was just a really beautiful experience.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking about the resources involved. So there's public safety, there's the veterans community, there's artist guilds, there are just artists in the room, there's musicians. There's just no end to the amount of resources that are there from our imagination and concretely. Again, this notion of just reaching out. When we think about the migrant community that sometime because of their status are kind of left somewhere, they don't necessarily have the benefit of being currently now, and even since I would say the last year, a little bit afraid to come out into the community, to come out and seek, to go to, for example, Casa Romero. There are different organizations. There's Truman College, that is right there in your neighborhood where they could go to classes, often for free for ESL, but they don't. And they're a little bit afraid to go right now. And part of what you do so well is to help encourage them, especially as it relates to sending their kids to school, which is really important. And oftentimes they are not sending their kids to school for the same reasons. But they also are engaging and creating resources in the community. I'll give you one example. There are people in the room I'm seeing who have even participated in this, but we created a pop-up camp. So what happens to all the children? There are 35,000 people, many of them are children. What happens when the summer comes and school is out? And they're in the shelters or these transitional housings in these buildings. And as you said so aptly, they're so grateful to have a shelter over their heads. But what happens in the summer? So just with a little imagination, many people I know in this room, we created a pop-up camp, a 5-day pop-up camp where the migrants themselves and their families were the leaders. And we, as supporters, kind of helped with the financials and created the tables. You know, I'm the last artist on the planet. I'm terrible at that. But there's many people who are great at that and, making necklaces. And in this case, this is a faith-based group. They are Catholic, and so they made the whole theme around the Bible. So the first year was the story of Noah. The second year, what was it last year? Yeah, creation. This year it's going to be the book of Daniel. And so this is an example of people just saying, yeah, I can bring a table, and I'll be one of those people, or I'll be the one to go to the park with them. We had a whole group of people who did nothing but usher them from the building where the camp is to the park. So just going to the park and being a park watcher. So you'll see on the back side of your, that's something that interests you. On the back side of your handout, there is, down at the bottom, you'll see just some details about the pop-up camp. If you are one of those people or you have kids, teenage kids or college age kids who are into that kind of thing, come for a day and be part of the camp. So there's really no end to the kinds of resources. These are just pictures. I know it's hard to see. Did I turn it off? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Let's see. Yeah. So I don't know what the time is. Are we okay on time? 10 minutes. So what we wanted to do, Martha and I were, when we were talking about this, we were like, well, we're going to talk about resources, but you're coming to the end of this series now. And we were thinking to ourselves, well, if it's really a matter of imagination and resources, what are you imagining? We kind of wanted to give ourselves as a community 2 or 3 minutes, just maybe with the person next to you, if you are already doing something, and I had a chance to chat with some of you earlier when we were in the parlor, thinking about what do you do? What do you know about? Or what do you want to do? What's a skill that you have? Or what are you imagining is possible just in this community? And we thought it might be fun, since this is the very last session, to have folks just take a couple minutes and kind of try to answer this question, which is, if we are the community that we want to be, what's possible? Like, what would you do? What could you do? What would you like to see done? And so, with your permission, I don't know, we're kind of going off script if this is okay. Maybe take just a couple minutes to the person sitting next to you and just say, what would I do? Given all the resources I've just heard about, all the places to plug in, what do I do? What could I do? If you're already doing something, share. And we'll just take 2 minutes, and then we'll just talk to each other for the last few minutes. Okay? Ready, go. 2 minutes. Okay. So maybe pick somebody from your little conversation, and we'd love to hear with the time. I want to honor the time and make sure we finish. See, this is what I love. I wish we could talk for another hour. Seriously. We could just all sit around together. Maybe we should all go out to dinner. So maybe just a few folks kind of share, what did you hear? What did you hear in your conversations that kind of sparked you? Anybody? Yeah. You have to really speak up.
Microphone. A food pantry. So I've volunteered at Just Harvest, which is at Howard and by the Howard L. And this other woman mentioned another one at.
St. John Birchman's Food Pantry, open to everyone every Monday, 1 to 3.
So a Just Harvest is always looking for volunteers because they serve lunch every day. It's a little tricky for people that work. It's better for people that are retired. You can volunteer once a week. They also they have a food pantry, not a food pantry, you can come in on Wednesdays from 3 to 4 to pick up a bag of groceries, and they also do food deliveries on Wednesday afternoons.
So Just Harvest, and what was, Ashley, what did you say the name of it was, where you go? St. John Birchman's in Leominster. Okay, so, great. Okay, what else did folks hear?
And we have a food pantry right in this building. And we have quite a few people that come in every week. We just translated our invitation to people into multi-languages so that now that's available to hand out. And one particular person that's a part of our group wanted to have something that they could hand out to people that are at grocery stores, asking for money.
Oh,
and
nice.
frankly, it's a much better idea to give them a card that tells them where they can go get food rather than transferring money and doing those kinds of things. There's just too many complications with it. So but we have it right in this building.
What's the name of the pantry here? Trinity?
Wilmette Food Pantry.
Oh, Wilmette Food Pantry. Great. Wonderful. Okay, what else did folks talk about?
We have a group of students here from Loyola's. I just met these wonderful students who are here from Loyola, who are with their Spanish Honor Society, and they were talking about some wonderful service things that they were doing. You guys want to introduce yourselves?
Share, please share. I hate to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I'm Colin. I'm a junior at Loyola.
I'm Emma. I'm also a junior. I'm Lily. I'm also a junior.
I'm Princess, and I'm also a junior.
And what are you all doing? What were the things that you were telling Cindy about?
Well, I volunteered with Catholic Charities last year, so that was just like handing out clothes and meals, hot food, in the evening, serving dinner. And also with Care for Real, that's in Rogers Park. We help migrants like get groceries, get food, like after school volunteering.
What was the name of the second organization?
Care for Real.
Care for Real?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've also volunteered at a Just Harvest, like serving meals on the weekends.
I volunteer, sorry.
You're all good.
I volunteer a lot at
She'll translate.
For me, I volunteer at Queen of All Saints Church in Saguenash.
Nice. Yes. Yay for the young people. So I'm sure there were more ideas, and I encourage you to share them and know them. It's really such a privilege to be here, and I want to thank Mark and Denny and Ann Mason, who fell, unfortunately, yesterday, and she's, I think, one of the brains behind the series. So thanks for galvanizing us, and maybe you want to close us out?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of closing remarks, and it's just so gratifying to have all of you come. In this series of 5 programs, we've reached probably 120 to 150 people overall, and it's just been amazing to see people come back and repeat and learn together. And I think one of the biggest lessons that we've all learned is how much resilience we have as a community together. As individuals, not so much. If you're facing formidable odds, it's tough when you're facing it on your own. But as demonstrated through Julie and Martha's remarks and through everybody that has attended this entire program, it's really about abundance, about sharing, it's about networking, and about knowing that there's a lot of us that really care about each other and creating a good community. So for those of you that don't know, this is the Home Alone Church. You knew that, didn't you? And this whole idea of welcoming the stranger is so firmly rooted in basically the history of this building. There are people who come here daily from all across the world that come to see the Home Alone Church. We had a Taizé service last Thursday evening. In fact, and there was a young couple that came in, and they were strangers to us. And I introduced myself, and this was the first church that these young people had been into in America. They are Ukrainian refugees. The woman had only been here for a week. The guy had been here for 6 months. And it was their first time inside of a church in America, or any kind of faith community. And as we all know, faith communities are very big in this in terms of resourcing. Our hearts are in the right place. We know why we want to do it. We're not doing it for personal gain. We're doing it to serve. And that's what's so wonderful about the whole series. I do want to thank Mark again. Mark was the person driving this. Would all of you that are on the planning team from Trinity please stand up? So Bonnie and David and Rebecca. These are standing ovation, I think that was. So, but they've worked tirelessly to make this happen. And I'm just so delighted to meet people like Julie and Martha and my good friend Cindy up here. By the way, Cindy's working with New Trier, with the Heroes and with the ABC Book Club. And she just introduced us to a film that we watched this weekend, which is called Human Flow. And it's on Amazon. You need to watch it. It talks about the fact that basically what we're experiencing in Chicago is worldwide. And it's been going on for quite some time. And that's one of the things that we have learned in this series and we have reinforced is this is not an unusual problem, and it's also not going away. It's probably going to increase. And the sooner we figure it out, the sooner we figure out how to be welcoming, the better all of us will be. You will receive a survey from us either this evening or tomorrow morning. Please fill it out. We need your feedback. If for whatever reason you did not sign up for this and just came this afternoon, that's awesome. And I'm trying to figure out how you should get your information to me so that we can get you on our email list. Just tell me. Come up afterwards, give me a card, give me a note or something so that we can get you on the list. I think that that's all I wanted to say, except for we're going to turn the page to another series in May. And we have 3 music programs in May, and it's going to be mainly just spring music. It's going to be awesome. One day will be the Chicago Bronze group, which is a spectacular group. On one of our Sunday afternoons, we're going to do a bluegrass mass right here with a bluegrass band. And it's going to be really, really fun. I'm in the choir. My wife Diane's in the choir, and it is hilarious. I mean, it's really, really fun. You got to be here. And then we'll have also a program in the beginning of June, which is the Constellation Men's Ensemble with all premieres of works that are written about Chicago seasons. And it's an all-men's ensemble, very unusual, terrific group, and they will be here. And they also contribute part of their ticket sales to an organization in Chicago that actually supports people in need with food, clothing, and health care. So that not only can you come and enjoy yourself, you can also contribute to another positive cause. So we're doing good stuff here. We love all of you. Some of you are part of our membership. Others of you are our new friends. And we hope that you know that at the Home Alone Church, you are always welcome. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you again, Martha, Julie. Thank you.